Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leverett Ball Show. And on this episode, I am joined by Jordan Keltner. And Love is Blind fans, you definitely recognize this guy. He was a contestant on the latest season of the show taking place in Denver. And Jordan is nice enough to join me on the podcast today. And, Jordan, I mentioned before we started recording, I previously had Joe Ferrucci on this podcast. He was a contestant on your season of Love is Blind. And I kind of talked to him about like what life is like after reality TV and how you kind of handle all of the attention and everything that comes your way. And it sounded like, he'd been handling it well. But for you, I mean, what has that experience been like? Kind of the whirlwind of being on a reality show and then you get off the show and you wait for it to air and then it airs and there's that new wave of publicity. I mean, how have you kind of managed all of that?
Let me say, if Joe's listening, Joe sucks. He's my least favorite person I was thrown in the trenches with. But honestly, it's been I live like tucked away in the suburbs, so everyone's been like super respectful. It's been like really cool that I get to take pictures with people and say what's up and have these quick little conversations, and you can just see like people like it's like oh that was cool like or like oh he's a cool guy, which I mean it's very special that I get to take, I get to kind of pass that energy along. And then I think the Love is Blind thing, like, it's just they crank out those seasons, man. So I don't really think this is just like a blip in my life. I don't want to call it 15 minutes of fame because I don't feel famous. I'm just a regular guy, but it's been really cool to just get to hang out and talk to all these different people and be out and about. It's really, I don't know. I love it.
That's awesome. And yeah, you're right. They do crank out seasons pretty regularly. It's a wildly popular show. It's funny because the next season that they're going to air is their Boston season. I live here in the Boston area. I can confirm I am not one of the contestants on the Boston season, but it'd be interesting to see, that version of Love is Blind in the place that I live. They've already filmed it. It hasn't aired yet. But you mentioned the kind of the reference to 15 minutes of fame, and there are some people who go on reality TV who, start a podcast or a YouTube channel or go on more reality shows and try to stay in the spotlight. Do you have interest in doing that, or do you kind of want the fame to fade a little bit and get back to kind of how your life was prior to Love is Blind?
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm only gonna really tune into that Love is Blind season if everyone has a thick Boston accent. If everyone sounds normal, I'm out, I'm not watching it. But yeah, I think it changes day by day for me personally. Some days my social battery is just rather drained. First and foremost, I'm a dad. That's what I want my priority to stay where I wanted to stay. And then second, I really want to write kids books. I think I'm very passionate about that. So everything else is just kind of, it's like every day is a game of chess almost because like yeah cool you can do stuff like that but it's like is the juice worth the squeeze, am I happy and obviously am I being available for my son, obviously he has health issues and stuff and I want to make sure I'm fully available. So this lifestyle because I was able to with working with these amazing brands and stuff was able to leave my full-time regular job at least momentarily. Like I don't really know what the future holds exactly but we're just taking it month by month, but it's very meaningful that I can pick my son up from school and drop him off and be fully available and present, after school with them. So if that's TV shows and YouTube stuff and brand deals is what lets me, stay available like that, then that's what I'm gonna do. But in the same sense, I will work whatever job that lets me, be available like that.
That's awesome, and that's great that you're so involved in your son's life. I mean, some men aren't involved in their kids' lives enough, but that's great that you prioritize that. And that's awesome to hear. One comment on the Boston accents and the upcoming season. Probably most people on Love Is Blind, the Boston season won't have Boston accents because the thing is about Boston is a lot of people who live in Boston grew up in other parts of the country or grew up overseas. So
Yep.
actually, most people who live in Boston didn't grow up here and don't have the traditional Boston accent. It's only like the people whose families have lived in Boston for multiple generations who have it. So there are actually far more people in Boston who don't have the Boston accent. I mean, I'm the perfect example. I live in Boston. I didn't grow up here. I don't really have the accent. I mean, I'm guessing maybe like 20% of the contestants will have a Boston accent, but
Gotcha.
yeah. So, but that's one thing. A lot of people who aren't from Boston assume that everyone talks that way. It's kind of the opposite. The people with the Boston accents are almost the minority in that regard. But you mentioned also, you writing children's books. You have the Dear Luca book series. Um, I definitely want to ask you a lot about that. But before we get to that, I like to ask guests questions kind of in the order that things happened. So, you were on Love is Blind, and you were engaged to a woman named Megan. You guys decided to end up not getting married and going your separate ways. And you also made some different friends on that show, including Joe Ferrucci. I mean, earlier you said that he sucks, so maybe you guys aren't such good friends. But I mean, I guess what was that like? Everyone sees the final edit that gets put on Netflix, but what was it like actually, in the process of making that show in the behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like so. Joe does suck, but he sucks. Never mind, lots of things. But no, I do love Joe. We just like to shit talk a lot. But
Right.
yeah, it's just like again, it's just a whirlwind of emotion. Everyone's taking time off work, and again, we're just regular people, and all of a sudden, you have these fucking IMAX camera type things falling. You're like, it's not low key at all, because I had only watched like one season when I was going through casting because they asked me to. So I was just very ignorant to like the production stuff. And I just was like, oh, there's probably just some GoPros walking around. Like, no, it's like booms and you got like a whole team of people assigned to you. So, very unique situation to just kind of be thrown into. And then it's just again, it's just 0 to 100. You're in the pods in the lounge, and there's all these people assigned to, take care of you and help you handle your emotions and things like that. And then you finish filming after a few months, and then it's just back to regular life, and no one knows anything. And it's just you're obviously NDA'd up, and you're just doing your darndest to just not slip or talk about anything. It's a very impactful part of life, but yeah, it was cool. And I mean, I wouldn't have rather gone through it with anyone else but the people we got casted with. Just a great group of people, all of them. So I got nothing but love for everybody.
When you mentioned that you hadn't really watched a whole lot of Love is Blind before going on the show, and so as far as how you first got on the show, I mean, there's some people who are like diehard fans who apply every year and get rejected every year. But I mean, in your case, if you didn't watch the show, I mean, did they reach out to you and ask you to be on the show, or how did that whole process work of you initially getting on the show?
Yeah, so I was pure serendipity for sure. So I don't watch a lot of TV. In general, and if I do, it's generally like Wally or some sort of kids show. I got my little trooper occupies the changer remote or whatever you want to call it. But I was just kind of informally, casually dating, just trying to figure out what I was looking for in a relationship. And I was on this date with this young lady, our first date. And she was like, "Oh yeah, Love Is Blind's casting in Denver. Me and my friends are gonna apply, and this is, the first 20 minutes of the date." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess this is going nowhere." But so I'd never even heard of the show. I told my best friends about it, and they're like, "That'd be crazy if you applied." And I'm just very very selfish with my time, so I kind of pulled up the application. It's like 100 questions. You had to do like a video and submit pictures, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not doing this shit." And so just so happens, and this is like late in the casting process. I don't know when they closed casting down, but I think it was probably like less than 30 days before they closed applications. And I was just getting my son ready for bed one night, and he wouldn't get out of the shower. And so I had an extra 10 minutes, and I said, let me just jump on there and fill this out as quickly as possible. And I'm not a very serious person in most aspects of life, and I definitely didn't take that application serious. I mean, I was just myself, so I just trolled the whole thing. Like one of the questions was like, "Why do you want to go on the show?" And I think I put my man Drake says YOLO, just dumb shit. I don't know if you remember. There's a show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave with the comedian Tim Robinson. It's like a skit show, and it at this time there was like a viral clip of his where they were doing like a fake dating show, and it's kind of like a bachelorette style, and the bachelorette's like asking him like, "Oh, you're only here for the zip line." I don't know if you remember that, but
Maybe.
so yeah, it was really memey back then. But I pretty much my video was like, I just want to go to the pods because I heard there was zip lines there, just like not very serious. And then lo and behold, I go on there and yeah, I just took it very serious, and I just was thought it was a very cool opportunity, and I wanted to be myself and find, my life partner. But
Gotcha. Wow. So it's that's interesting to look at kind of how the behind the scenes of reality TV works. You know what's funny though? You mentioned how you weren't super serious. You kind of joked around on your application, and it's funny because I've never been on a reality show. I was actually in a talent pool for a reality show once. This was the show Real World,
oh
and
yeah, yeah, I got a
yeah,
funny story about that.
I sent them like a video and filled out the questions, and then they actually called me and they said, we've selected you for a talent pool of people we're considering for the show. And that wasn't a promise to be on the show. There were like multiple rounds of interviews, but I guess I at least made the first round of cuts. And then I was really busy at the time with my TV work on ESPN and my podcast, so I ended up withdrawing myself from the application process. And I wasn't guaranteed to get on the show anyway if I had stayed, but I remember that kind of that step of the process, and a lot of people told me when you're interviewing to be on a reality show, it's the opposite of what you would do in a job interview for a corporate job. So like, you're supposed to be goofy, you're supposed to tell crazy stories. That stuff helps you get on the show. Telling a story in a corporate job interview about funneling a beer up your ass is not going to get you hired, but it might actually increase your chances of getting on a reality show if you tell a story like that. So what you said makes a lot of sense. I think if you'd been super serious and boring, they might not have selected you. But also during your time on the show, you got engaged to a woman named Megan, and you guys ended up deciding not to go to the altar and not get married. And I don't mean this in any way to be disrespectful to her, but she did remind me a lot of one of my ex girlfriends. And like some of the reasons I didn't work out with that ex were like I felt like I was watching it unfold on the show a little bit. Especially with like how much she loved lifestyle and fancy things. She might be a distant cousin of my ex girlfriend, but when did you guys know that it wasn't the right fit? Because it seemed like kind of a mutual decision.
So, you know, I feel like it was like a slow build up to that. It doesn't obviously doesn't seem that way because there's only so much time they can, I think there's each episode's an hour or whatever. There's 12 episodes. So, but it was just like a slow build up. I think as we started like mixing our friends and stuff, like we just totally different. And again, like personality wise, I think we still like, even when we see each other, here and there around town, we have great chemistry. We laugh together. We get along great, but it was like her friends, I think, were kind of like, "Are you sure you're willing to take step down to do that?" Which I was very transparent in during the dating process. I said, I told you you're going to have to make sacrifices." Because she was kind of guarded about her, fancy lifestyle, and I was very, very transparent about just like, "Hey, I'm a single dad. I work a lot. My son occupies a lot of my time. He has these, health issues that keep me up at night sometimes. And so you're sharing a bed and you're getting low blood sugar alarms. Like that wakes everyone up. So I just try to lead with transparency. And then, yeah, like I said, it just kind of seemed like as the days would go by and as our lifestyles were in this mixing pot, I just could feel like the distance being created. I don't think they ever brought it up in the show, but we had because I was very aware that I was going to be gone and we were going to be missing connections throughout the day. So we had this like little notebook. It was like we call it like an appreciation book. So we just each morning write something down we appreciated about each other. Doesn't matter if it was like if it was like a small thing or a big thing, but it'd be like, thank you for cooking dinner last night. It was really good or something. And like towards the end, we like the people, I would like open it and there wouldn't be anything. And I'm like, oh, I'm not, if you didn't write anything for me, I don't, it's hard for me to write something for you, And so it was like probably a week out before the wedding where it was kind of like, this is not looking good. I think everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall, and in the week prior to the wedding, it was literally day by day. Like one day, because we were very open and candid with, because again, we didn't want to bring my son to the wedding and then someone say no. We just thought that would be crazy, and that's traumatic for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like every day she would be like, it would be like, oh, I'm having like crazy hesitations. And I would be like, well, I'm not marrying someone who has hesitations. Like, I want someone to marry me regardless. Like, if you're having hesitations, that gives me hesitations. And then the next day, it's like, no, let's do this. And so, up until the very, like, to the wire, that conversation, that last scene that took place was literally the night before the wedding. And yeah, that was like, I think that was shitty for everyone to go through because everyone already had their friends and family in town. And again, production, they have, they're sworn to secrecy with location. They don't want anything leaking and stuff. So I have like guests, and I'm sure it was the same with her being like, hey, we don't know where the wedding is. And I said, well, one, that makes two of us. And then two, it's like I didn't want to say anything, but I'm like, I don't know if there's gonna be a wedding per se, like with how things are going. So
Yeah, I mean that all makes a ton of sense, and I completely agree with you. If someone's telling you they have hesitations about you, that would make you have hesitations about them. I think anyone with like a healthy amount of pride, like the whole mindset of like if you don't want me, I don't want you. Like you should never be begging a woman to want you. If she doesn't want you, other women are probably a better option. So that's completely understand where you come from with that. But I guess what I found so relatable about your relationship on that show was like I had an ex girlfriend who was, like I mentioned, obsessed with fancy lifestyle, and I don't really live that way. It's not an important thing to me, and was very judgmental of the fact I didn't have a very fancy lifestyle, and also wasn't really on board with the crazy schedule and lifestyle of someone who's on TV and does a podcast. And she was, telling me maybe you should just do real estate, do something with a, more chill schedule. It's like, I mean, I interviewed Michael Strahan on my podcast. I think that's a lot cooler than doing fucking real estate. But yeah, I mean, so. I mean, honestly, yeah, it was so relatable watching that unfold on the show. Like, I felt like I was watching myself. Like, people are gonna have to start calling me Leverett Keltner. Yeah, incredibly relatable. I mean, maybe a less handsome Keltner than you are, but nonetheless. So I mean, that being said, though, I mean, one thing you were also open about on the show, which you referenced a little bit, is your son having diabetes and diabetes awareness. How important is it for you to kind of use your platform to spread accurate information about diabetes? Because with so many medical conditions, there's like ignorant misconceptions and misinformation that people have. How important is it for you to spread accurate information about diabetes?
And again, that was never my intention to become an advocate or anything like that. It just organically happened. I'm so glad it did. And obviously there's two types of diabetes, and even some people will be like, oh, well, there's even more of the type. Whatever, tomato, tomato. Regardless of what type it is, it's a horrendous thing to go through. It's terrible. Like I said, you'll never. And if you get a good night's sleep, that's a godsend. If you're not woken up in the middle of the night by an alarm or something going on, that's an amazing feat. But yeah, it was just great that I get to kind of wake up and advocate and work with these amazing organizations and charities, because it like truly happens to the most undeserving people. And then again, it's like tomato, tomato. I don't care if it's type 1 or type 2. Like it's a disease. It's crazy that people want to point fingers or victim blame about diet or genetics or whatever. In my opinion, like I just want people to have health care, regardless of whatever disease it is. But obviously, the type 1 diabetes thing has a personal connection to me. So that's just where I kind of naturally landed in terms of advocacy.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an expert on this at all. But type one is the type that you are born with, and then type two you acquire during your life.
Yeah, so I mean, type 1 is just an autoimmune disease, so it kind of happens. It's just like a genetic disposition, essentially. It's gonna happen. For my son, he was diagnosed when he was 2. For some people, they don't get diagnosed until they're 22. Like, there's no like set boundary on that. And then, I don't want to speak too much on type 2 because I'm not like an expert at or like on the subject, but the general conception is like type 2 is more diet lifestyle driven. But again, I don't want to say one is worse than the other, but it's just something that people have to deal with, and it's crazy that we even have to have these organizations getting people in this country insulin, like one of the most affordable medications in the world, and people literally die from it in this. Like we're like the most. I mean, like our country should not have that issue, but it
You're
does.
right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, healthcare is a basic human right, and in other countries, they have free healthcare available. That's true in a lot of countries in Europe. I mean, I guess, and this is not the direction I saw this conversation going in, but I guess in our current political system, some people think it's more important for billionaires to have extra boats than for kids to get fucking insulin. It's disgusting. And also, what you said, whether it's type 1, type 2, it shouldn't matter. Everyone with diabetes should be treated with compassion.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like I just the victim blaming or whatever just doesn't make sense. And then I always like to lead with, no one is asked to be put here, so it's crazy. Like at the bare minimum, like and I'm not saying it's quote unquote free, right? But because obviously, yeah, it's not. But it's like we should support each other as neighbors and as we share this amazing country together. So it's just weird that it's even up for discussion. People want to be all on their high horse about it, but that's just my 2 cents.
100%. And like I said, I plan on asking you about the Dear Luca book series, but one more thing on that topic. For people who maybe want to like donate money to charities that help with diabetes, whether it's research, treatment, etc., where can people go to maybe donate to that cause?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, like no one has to donate to any sort of diabetic organization. I always say, hey, like find something that has personally meaning to you. So maybe the donation is a little more personally impactful. You feel like better about it. But I mean, I've worked with the American Diabetes Association, Breakthrough T1D, and then again, I work really close hand in hand with Life for a Child, and again, they just work with like the poorest of the poor, where these like people are just dying left and right because not they don't it's not even that they don't have the supplies, they don't even have like the diagnostic capabilities to diagnose these people, so they're just like laying the groundwork to just like longevity and really identifying that people have type 1 diabetes before they die, because once you're diagnosed the life expectancy is like 2 to 3 years, without proper healthcare access. So yeah,
Wow.
it's a deadly disease.
Wow. And yeah, that's I did not know that detail. That's actually astonishing and explains, why this is such an important topic. So seriously, thank you for everything you've done to bring awareness to that topic. And your son, who you mentioned, who has diabetes, is named Luca, and you have the Dear Luca book series. I mean, have you always been interested in writing, or did you kind of develop that interest after Love Is Blind? And can you tell us
Yeah, it
about
was kind
that?
of, yeah, I've always had the business itch, always try and shoot new things. So like during Love is Blind, I had like a car sharing kind of deal where I was partnered with this company that went out of business, and I had like 12 rental cars, and I thought I was gonna retire off that. Like I was doing so good. And then of course I don't remember if it was COVID or what happened, but people just stopped traveling and that went downhill so quick. So I kind of had exited that, and then my son was in kindergarten at the time and was learning how to read. And I was like, just, I don't know, it's so cool just watching your kids learn how to read for the first time. Just, like, they have these things called Bob books, which is like the simplest of the simple, it's just like very simple sentences for like kindergartners. And, we're reading them and just like, wow, this is cool. And then it just kind of came to me. I was like, oh, why don't I do this? Like, one of my best friends is a teacher, and she teaches this social emotional learning system, which is just talking about emotions and stuff. So I was like, let's see what we can do here, and then we just kind of went with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you mentioned it's such a joy for parents to see their children reading for the first time. That's actually a joy that my parents never had. I still have no idea how to fucking read, but maybe someday, who knows? But but that's really cool that you've been doing that, and the title is inspired by your son Luca. That's a really cool thing. And also, before we wrap things up, for any hardcore, Jordan Keltner fans, I mean, what do you have? Two-pronged question: what do you have going on in the near future, and what are your social media handles where they can follow you?
So social media handles are the same. I just have, I mean, I have like a Facebook for like working with these brands, but I don't monitor it or touch it. So I don't even know what you would search. It's probably just Jordan Keltner. And then Instagram and TikTok are just Jordan.Keltner. And then the future, I don't, like I said, man, I don't, it's like really a weird situation to be in, kind of uncharted territory for me personally. And finding mentorship in this space, it's like very, like, I've had a lot of the past cast members reach out and everyone's kind of doing their own thing, doing different stuff. So it's really hard to find mentorship. So I'm just taking it day by day, but I really enjoy creating content, like feel good content. I love air frying fancy things. I don't know how I got into that, but air frying fancy foods is kind of up my alley. We're about to do some lamb chops and carrots and random shit, but it's just, the future, man, you know as good as I do, to be honest, right now. I don't know. Like I said, I take it month by month. I've kind of dedicated this entire calendar year to really dedicating myself to the book brand. I have an infinite amount of ideas. It's just, money, time, resources, and I just want to do stuff that matters, truthfully.
Well, that's cool, and yeah, I mean, I know. I think anytime you're in a niche field, there aren't a lot of people who can relate to you. Whether it's reality TV or like, what I do with podcasting and television in these niche industries, there aren't a lot of people who can relate to you. So it's great to, find people who can and lean on them for mentorship. But Jordan, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And do you have any final words for our audience about your books, your work with diabetes, anything else you have going on?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, please check out Life for a Child. Like I said, that's the most goated T1D charity, in my opinion, for the work they do worldwide. If you want to scoop a copy of the book, www.dearluca.com. Doing my very best. As soon as this call ends, actually, I gotta jump on and I'm working on getting these motherfuckers on Amazon, but not a very
Nice.
user-friendly site. But looking back, probably should have did that first before my own standalone website, but it is what it is.
Shit
Um,
happens.
there's free lesson plans for teachers in regards to emotions on dearluca.com. So don't buy a book. Go get your free lesson plan though. And I guess, shucks, that's it, man. Just have an amazing day.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. All the things you're involved in, and yeah, it's definitely a grind. Operating your own business, operating your own website, a lot of responsibilities that you have to worry about that maybe you wouldn't in like a generic 9 to 5 job. You're kind of responsible for everything. So 100%. But everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode. Definitely give Jordan a follow on social media. Maybe check out some of the diabetes organizations he's worked with. But once again, everyone, that was Jordan Keltner, our guest. You've been listening to the Leverett Ball Show.